The cabin had gone silent. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that makes your chest tighten because you know something's terribly wrong. I pressed my hand against the wall. Ice cold. My phone screen glowed uselessly in my palm. And oh, service. We were trapped. Patrick, Sylvia's voice cut through the darkness, tight with something between fear and forced control. She stood framed in the doorway, wrapped in her red cardigan, my best friend's mom looking nothing like the composed woman who'd greeted me at her door 3 hours ago. The generator's completely dead. And the temperature, she held up the old thermometer. It's already down to 38 inside. It's going to keep dropping. I nodded, trying to swallow my rising panic. What had started as a simple favor to help Murphy's mom grab some papers from her grandmother's old cabin before the forecasted evening storm had turned into a nightmare when a blizzard hit hours early and with twice the predicted force. "There's something else," I said, pointing toward the back bedroom where frost was already forming on the inside of the window. "That window's cracking. I can hear the ice expanding against the frame." Sylvia's eyes widened. She moved closer to look, her shoulder brushing against mine, a jolt of electricity I definitely shouldn't be feeling. Not now, not ever. Our breath formed white clouds between us in the rapidly cooling air. "Patrick," she whispered, her voice dropping to something more vulnerable, more dangerous. "We're in need to share body heat. I know it's." A deafening crack split the air. The back window exploded inward, glass and snow spraying across the bedroom floor. The wind screamed through the opening like something alive and hungry. 3 hours earlier, everything had been normal. Well, as normal as it could be when you're alone in a car with a woman you've been carefully avoiding for over a decade. "Thank you for doing this, Patrick," Sylvia had said as we wound up the narrow mountain road in my Jeep. The morning sun made her auburn hair catch the light in a way that made my chest ache. Murphy offered, but with his work conference in Denver and Phillips on shift until tonight. "It's no problem," I'd said, keeping my eyes locked on the road, my voice carefully casual. "What are friends for?" "Liar," the voice in my head whispered. "You know exactly why you said yes." The truth was far more complicated. I've been in love with Sylvia since I was 22 years old. Not the passing kind of attraction you feel for someone beautiful. The deep, permanent kind that burrows into your bones and never quite leaves. At 46, she was 13 years older than me, elegant in that understated way that made everyone else in our small Montana town look like they were trying too hard. She'd been married to Murphy's father, then untouchable, forbidden, the mother of my best friend. Even after James died 3 years ago, I'd never let myself see her as anything but Murphy's mom. It was safer that way. For everyone. The weather report that morning had mentioned a storm system moving in around 6 p.m., plenty of time to retrieve her grandmother's property documents, some family photos, and get back to town for dinner. The sky had been crystalline blue when we left at 10 a.m. Then, somewhere around mile marker 23, I noticed Sylvia checking the sky more frequently. "The clouds are building faster than they predicted," she'd said quietly. She was right. By the time we reached the turnoff to the cabin, the sky had turned the color of old bruises. The first snowflakes were fat and lazy, almost beautiful. Within 20 minutes, we couldn't see 10 feet in front of the Jeep. We should wait it out, Sylvia had decided, her voice taking on that common crisis tone she used when one of her sons was hurt. "The cabin has emergency supplies. We'll be fine." Now, with the generator dead, the temperature plummeting toward zero, and a broken window letting the storm pour into half the cabin. "Fine," felt like a word from another lifetime. "What the hell was that?" I gasped, staring at the destroyed window. "Tree branch, maybe?" Sylvia's hand found my arm, gripping tight. "Patrick, we need to seal off that room. Now, before we lose all the heat we have left." We moved fast. I grabbed the emergency blankets from the hall closet while Sylvia found duct tape and plastic sheeting her grandmother had stored in the kitchen. We worked in tense silence, hanging the plastic barrier across the bedroom doorway, trying to create a smaller space we could keep warmer. It wasn't enough. I could already see my breath getting thicker. "How cold is it outside?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Sylvia checked the outdoor thermometer mounted outside the kitchen window. Her face went pale. -15, and dropping. My stomach lurched. Without heat, without power, in a cabin that was now exposed to the elements. We need to think about body heat, Sylvia said quietly, not meeting my eyes. She was using her clinical voice, the one she probably used with the high school students she counseled. Practical. Detached. It's basic survival protocol. We should consolidate to the main room, away from the broken window. Gather all the blankets we can find. And we'll need to, she swallowed hard. We'll need to stay close. Very close. Right? I managed, my mouth suddenly dry. Just survival. But as our eyes finally met across the darkening cabin, as the storm howled around us and the temperature continued its deadly descent, I saw something flicker in her expression: recognition, fear, and something else I'd spent 11 years pretending I didn't see. We both knew this was going to be about more than just surviving the cold. The call had come Tuesday morning while I was debugging code at my home office. Sylvia's name on my phone screen made my pulse spike the way it always did, the way it had for 11 years. Patrick, I hate to ask, but I'm in a bind. Her voice carried that apologetic tone she used when she needed help but didn't want to impose. My lawyer needs my grandmother's property deed by Friday for the estate settlement. It's at the old cabin, and there's a storm forecasted for tonight. Murphy's in Denver for that tech conference, and Philip's working a double shift at the rescue station until tomorrow morning. I know it's last minute, but I'll take you, I'd said, perhaps too quickly. When do you want to leave? The truth was, I would have driven her anywhere. I've been doing these favors for years, fixing her kitchen sink, changing the oil in her car, helping her move furniture. Each one a flimsy excuse to be near her, to pretend I was just being a good friend to Murphy's family. We met 15 years ago when Murphy brought me home from college for Thanksgiving break. I was a sophomore with nowhere else to go, and Sylvia had welcomed me like I was one of her own. Over the years, I'd become a fixture at their house Sunday dinners, Murphy's birthday parties, holiday gatherings. I'd watch her marriage to James slowly crumble, watched her hold her family together through the divorce with quiet strength. Then, 3 years ago, James died suddenly of a heart attack. I'd stood at the funeral in my ill-fitting suit, watching Sylvia accept condolences with that fragile composure. And something shifted. She wasn't just Murphy's mom anymore. She was a woman, grief-stricken and beautiful and utterly out of reach. Now, as she climbed in my Jeep wearing jeans and a thick sweater, I forced myself to focus on the road ahead. Philip called this morning, worried about the storm timing, she said, buckling her seatbelt. I told him we'd be back by dinner, but you know how he gets. I nodded, gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary, and started the drive up the mountain. The cabin smelled like dust and old wood when we arrived. Sylvia went straight to her grandmother's bedroom, pulling open drawers while I checked the windows. The sky had turned an ominous gray, but the snow was still light. We had time. Found them. Sylvia held up a manila envelope and a small box of photos. We can go. That's when I noticed the snow outside had thickened. Not gradually, suddenly, like someone had flipped a switch. The flakes were smaller now, dense, coming down sideways in sheets. Sylvia, I pointed at the window. Look, her face paled. We rushed to the Jeep, but the driveway had already disappeared under 6 inches of fresh powder. I tried anyway, the wheels spinning uselessly before we'd gone 20 feet. The road down the mountain was invisible, buried under white. We need to get back inside, I said, my chest tightening. The generator coughed to life when I tried it, ran for maybe 10 minutes, then died with a grinding sound that told me it wasn't coming back. The temperature gauge in the kitchen read 32 and dropped. Outside, the thermometer showed -5. Sylvia turned the kitchen tap. Nothing came out. The pipes are frozen already? Her voice pitched higher, the calm facade cracking. The storm hit 3 hours early, I said, checking my phone. No signal. Philip won't even know we're in trouble yet. How long until? 12 hours minimum. Maybe 18 if the roads don't clear. I tried to keep my voice steady, but panic was creeping up my throat. -5 was already dangerous. The forecast had mentioned -20. Sylvia pulled out her phone, held it toward the window, and turned in circles. Nothing. Patrick, I can't. We're okay. I lied, watching my breath form clouds. We just need to think. We have emergency supplies, right? She nodded, but I could see the fear in her eyes mirroring my own. We found 4 emergency candles in the kitchen drawer, 3 thin thermal blankets in the hall closet, and some granola bars that had expired 2 years ago. Not exactly a robust survival kit. We should seal the drafts, Sylvia said, already moving toward the windows with duct tape. Her counselor training was kicking in focus on what you can control. I was stuffing towels under the front door when I heard it, a sharp crack from the back bedroom, like ice splitting. We both froze. The window frame had ice growing along its edges, expanding inward. As we watched, a thin fracture appeared in the glass. We need to move away from that room, I said. If it breaks. The main room, Sylvia agreed quickly. Away from the windows. We gathered everything into the center of the living space. Blankets, candles, the small battery radio that only picked up static. The temperature gauge now read 28 inside. Outside, -12. We should, Sylvia started, then stopped, wrapping her arms around herself. We need to think about conserving body heat. It's just basic survival science. 2 people generate more warmth than 1. Right? I said, not looking at her. Makes sense. We sat on the couch, a careful foot of space between us at first. Then Sylvia spread 1 blanket beneath us and draped the others over both our laps. Our shoulders touched. I could feel the heat of her even through our layers of clothing. Can I ask you something? She said after a long silence. Why did you never get married? Murphy mentioned you dated someone a few years ago, but I stared at the flickering candle. Just never found the right person, I guess. Another lie to add to the collection. Patrick, she shifted slightly toward me. Your teeth are chattering. They were. The cold was seeping through everything now, relentless and patient. The window exploded inward with a sound like a gunshot. Sylvia screamed, grabbing my arm as wind and snow blasted through the back bedroom, instantly filling the doorway with swirling white. Move! I yanked her toward the far corner of the main room. We scrambled to hang the plastic sheeting across the bedroom entrance, sealing off half the cabin. The space we had left felt impossibly small. The couch was our only option now. We huddled together, every blanket piled on top of us, our bodies pressed side to side from shoulder to hip. Outside, the light was already failing. 4:30, and it looked like midnight. I lit the last 2 candles with shaking hands. Murphy called me last week, Sylvia said quietly, her breath visible in the candlelight. He's worried about me. Says I never go anywhere, never see anyone. You've been through a lot. It's been 3 years, Patrick. Her voice cracked slightly. 3 years, and I still feel like I'm not really here. Like I stopped being a person and became just a role. Murphy's mom, the widow, the woman people feel sorry for at the grocery store. I turned to look at her. In the dim light, her face was all shadows and angles, her eyes reflecting the candle flame. I've never thought of you as invisible, I said carefully, each word measured. She stared at me for a long moment. Something passed between us, recognition, maybe, or danger. Her hand was inches from mine under the blanket. We should try to conserve energy, she said abruptly, pulling back. Stay still. Just focus on staying warm. Right? I agreed, my heart pounding. Just staying warm. But the air between us felt electric despite the cold, charged with everything we weren't saying. The temperature gauge read 22 degrees. Outside, -15 and still dropping. -18 outside. The candles had burned down to stubs, and I could no longer feel my feet. Beside me, Sylvia had gone quiet, too quiet. Then she started shaking, not shivering, violent, uncontrollable tremors that rattled her whole body. Sylvia? Panic spiked through me. I'd read about hypothermia and knew what those shakes meant. We need to get closer. Now. I'm fine, You're not fine. I turned toward her, pulling her against my chest. She resisted for a moment, her body rigid, then suddenly surrendered, pressing into me. I wrapped my arms around her, her face buried against my neck, our legs tangling together under the blankets. The darkness was complete now. I could only feel her trembling gradually subsiding, her breath warm against my throat, her fingers clutching my shirt. "I need to tell you something," she whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear. "I've noticed you for years. The way you look at me. I've tried to pretend I don't see it, but I do." My heart stopped, then started again too fast. "Sylvia," and "I've tried to pretend I don't." Her voice broke. "That I don't notice you back. That I don't think about you when I shouldn't. That I don't know exactly why you never stay for dinner anymore. Why you leave early. Why you're always so careful never to be alone with me." The confession hung between us in the frozen air. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "This is just survival." I finally managed, my voice hoarse. "We're just trying not to freeze. That's all this is, right?" I felt her exhale against my skin, relief or disappointment. I couldn't tell. Just survival. But her arms tightened around me, and mine around her, and we both knew we were lying. The first of many lies we'd tell that night. Time became meaningless in the darkness. We drifted in and out of sleep, or was something like exhaustion blurring with cold until I couldn't tell which was which. Each time I surfaced, I was aware of her. The weight of her head on my shoulder, her hand resting against my chest, our hearts beating out of sync, and then, gradually, together. "Patrick," her voice pulled me back from the edge of sleep. "Are you awake?" "Yeah." A long pause. Then, "You said you've been careful around me." I should have pretended not to remember saying that. Should have blamed the cold, the fear, the delirium. "Yeah," I said again. "Careful how?" My chest tightened. "Careful not to be alone with you. Careful not to look too long when you're in a room. Careful not to—" Not to what? The question hung there, dangerous and inevitable. I could feel her breath against my collarbone, could feel her waiting. "We should try to sleep," I said finally. The coward's escape. She was quiet for so long, I thought she'd let it go. Then, "Okay." But her fingers curled tighter in my shirt, and she shifted closer if that was even possible, until there was no space left between us at all. An hour? 3? I woke to find her tracing absent circles on my chest through my sweater. When she realized I was awake, she stopped. "Sorry. I was just—" "It's okay," I said quickly. "Body heat. We need to stay close." "Right. Body heat." The excuse sounded weaker this time. Thinner. Like ice cracking under too much weight. We were both shivering again, but I didn't think it was entirely from the cold anymore. Deep night felt like being underwater. My thoughts moved slowly, thick and sluggish. Beside me, Sylvia had gone still again, too still. "Patrick!" Her voice was small, frightened. "I can't feel my legs." Adrenaline cut through the fog. I pushed the blankets aside, ignoring the shock of the cold, and ran my hands down her thighs, her calves, trying to generate friction, heat, anything. "Stay with me," I said, rubbing harder. Her arms, her shoulders. Every touch felt electric despite the numbing cold. Every point of contact burning through my palms. She started crying quiet, desperate sounds. "I don't want to die here. Not like this." "You're not going to die." I pulled her against me again, fierce and certain. "I promise you, I won't let that happen. If we don't make it," she whispered, "do you have any regrets?" I was too cold, too tired, too terrified to lie anymore. "You," I said, the word breaking free. 11 years of you. Watching you across rooms at Murphy's birthday parties. Leaving early when he invited me for dinner because I couldn't stand another hour of pretending. Knowing exactly what perfume you wear, jasmine, and something else I've never been able to name. Coming up with excuses to fix things in your house, just to be near you for 20 minutes. You. Always you. She stared at me in the darkness. I could see tears frozen on her cheeks, catching what little light remained. Then she kissed me. Her lips were cold at first, desperate, but they warmed against mine. I kissed her back, years of restraint shattering, my hands in her hair, her fingers clutching my face like I might disappear. We stopped pretending it was about survival. We stopped pretending at all. I woke to silence. Not the oppressive quiet of the storm, but genuine stillness. The wind had stopped. Gray dawn light filtered through the frost-covered windows, weak but real. Sylvia was asleep against my chest, her face finally peaceful. One hand curled against my shoulder, her breathing deep and even. In the pale morning light, I studied her and really looked at her, maybe for the first time, without guilt or fear. Not Murphy's mom, not the widow, just Sylvia, the woman I'd loved for 11 years, the woman I'd held all night, the woman I'd kissed. Then I heard it, an engine growling in the distance, shouting, "Sylvia! Patrick! Can you hear me? Philip! Sylvia!" I shook her gently. "Sylvia, wake up. Someone's coming." Her eyes opened, confused at first. Then awareness flooded in where she was, what had happened, what we'd done. I watched the panic wash over her face, followed immediately by shame. We separated like we'd been burned, scrambling apart on the couch. She smoothed her hair with shaking hands while I straightened my shirt, both of us moving with guilty speed. "Sylvia!" Philip's voice was closer now, urgent. "Murphy can never know," Sylvia whispered, her eyes wide and frightened. "Patrick, he can never." I know. The words hurt coming out, but I said them anyway. Agreed. She stared at me for one more second, something like grief crossing her face, then turned toward the door as we heard footsteps on the porch. The night was over. Reality was breaking in with the dawn, and we had maybe 30 seconds to decide who we were going to pretend to be. The door burst open. Philip stood there in full search and rescue gear, his face a mixture of relief and fury. "Jesus Christ, Mom. I told you not to go up before the storm." He rushed in, 2 other rescuers behind him. "Are you both okay? Let me check you." He examined us with professional efficiency, fingers, toes, and core temperature. "Mild hypothermia, but you'll be fine." "You're lucky. What happened?" Philip asked, looking around at the broken window, the makeshift barriers, the nest of blankets. "The generator failed," Sylvia said, her voice steady, clinical. "The back window shattered around 6. The temperature dropped to -20. We sealed off the bedroom, consolidated it into this space. We did what we had to do to survive." I added, the words tasting like ash. Philip nodded, approving. "Smart. Body heat sharing, that's textbook survival. Probably saved your lives." Sylvia and I carefully avoided looking at each other. "Let me prepare the snowmobiles," Philip said, heading back outside. "We'll have you down the mountain in 20 minutes. The moment he left, silence crashed over us. "Sylvia," I started. "It was survival, Patrick." She cut me off, her voice shaking. "That's all." We were scared and cold and, "Don't." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Don't do this." "What do you want me to say?" Tears filled her eyes. "That I've thought about you every day for 3 years. That I feel like a terrible person for looking at my son's best friend the way I look at you. That I haven't felt like myself since James died, but last night," her voice broke. "Last night you felt alive." I finished quietly. She nodded, unable to speak. "I'm not saying we'll tell Murphy tomorrow," I said, "but I'm saying we can't pretend it was nothing. Not anymore." "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Neither do I, but we figured it out. Together." "Mom, Patrick, let's go." Philip's voice carried from outside. We walked to the snowmobiles separately, maintaining careful distance. But just before she climbed on behind Philip, Sylvia looked back at me. One look of promise, fragile and terrifying, that this conversation wasn't finished. Some lies protect us, I thought, watching her disappear down the mountain. Others just keep us prisoners, and we've been prisoners long enough. If this story made you feel something, if Patrick and Sylvia's impossible choice resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. I pour everything into crafting these emotional journeys, and your support means the world to me. But here's what I'm really curious about. Have you ever had to choose between loyalty to someone you love and honesty about your own feelings? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to know what happens when Patrick and Sylvia finally face Murphy, when a lie they agreed to tell starts cracking under the weight of truth, let me know in the comments, and I'll create part 2. I'd also love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country below, and let's see how far this story has traveled around the world. And one more thing. Do you think Patrick and Sylvia are being selfish, or do they deserve a chance at happiness? Is there a right answer here, or is it more complicated than that? I intentionally left that question open because sometimes the most powerful stories don't give us easy answers, they make us think. Until next time, remember, some lies protect us. Others just keep us prisoners. The hardest part is knowing which is which. Subscribe to find out what happens next. This story isn't over yet.